Did you know that you might be able to get money back on therapy? Zaya Health has helped people get reimbursed thousands of dollars, even if the therapist doesn't take insurance. Check out Zaya Health today to see if you're eligible. Welcome to Season 5 of the Color Success Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie J. Wong. We have real conversations with our AAPI and ethnic minority guests about mental health and what success means to them. Before we get into it, please go to Color Success Podcast to sign up for our mailing list for free. You can find our YouTube channel, socials, and all of our episodes on anywhere where you stream podcasts. In today's Season 5 premiere, I sit down with Dave Liu, a technology industry veteran who founded the Asian American Founders Circle, which led to the launch of Hyphen Capital, a syndicate focused on investing in Asian American founders with over $25 million in over 80 startups to date. He started a movement by authoring a letter in the Wall Street Journal condemning hate crimes against Asian Americans, and the letter was signed by CEOs and public figures. The letter led to co-founding Stand with Asian Americans, which seeks to fight discrimination against Asian Americans. He recently produced 38 at the Garden on Jeremy Lin, which is now streaming on HBO. He also sits on the board of the Smithsonian Asian Pacific American Center, with the mission to build an APA museum on the National Mall. We discuss the importance of standing up for what's right despite conflicting cultural and societal messages we receive, the power of community in helping us feel supported in facing challenges, the importance of creating our own opportunities to break the bamboo ceiling, and building a better world for our children. Well, today I have a very special guest, Dave Liu, here from Hyphen Capital, and we are here to talk about investing in Asian American founders and businesses and projects. So, Dave, thank you so much for spending today with me.
Oh, no, thanks for having me.
Well, I'm very interested in how your journey has unfolded as a investor and someone who really mentors other Asian American leaders.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long journey for me. I was born in New York, grew up in New Jersey, and Taiwanese American, Taiwanese immigrant parents, and just was taught to keep my head down and just keep studying and work hard and it lead to success. I got into the Ivy League school my parents wanted me to, then moved out to California, did a consulting job, did everything kind of that the immigrant parents would be proud of.
By the immigrant book.
Yes, I had the immigrant book. Jumped through all the hoops, and at some point in my life, after working at the Apples and eBays and going to Stanford and this or that, after each hoop I jumped through, I realized there wasn't necessarily satisfaction or joy on the other side, and it's just endless. I mean, it's hoop after hoop, and I think early on in my adulthood, I realized that I can't be living for my parents anymore. I have to start doing things for myself, and that's when probably around the time when I decided to take the detour or take the different path and started my first company back in 2005. So I was about 30, 29 then, and it was not easy. Parents weren't, my mom wasn't too happy about that, but I think it fulfilled me, and I started working on that, and that's when I started to see more that the game is not tilted necessarily, and the odds aren't tilted in our favor, because we've been taught to keep our heads down and just work hard, and that isn't the way to succeed. I think I started realizing how important it is to have a network of people to get you there, and that you don't do it alone, and that you have to advocate for yourself, otherwise you'll never be seen. And especially for Asians who, we've been told to keep our heads down for just to not cause trouble, so we don't draw attention to ourselves. But at the same time, if you don't draw attention to yourself, that's when you don't get recognized. So there was a lot of kind of unlearning I had to do, and I value all of the important values and things that my parents taught me from being Asian American, growing up in an Asian culture and household. But I think there was also things I had to learn for myself about how that doesn't necessarily work in society in America and the Western culture. And so it's been as a third culture kid, you have to learn to blend that and navigate all that, and that's kind of what I did. And along the way, as I've seen others struggle with that, and I've gotten older, I've started to speak out more, to make sure that people realize how important it is to advocate for themselves, and also call out when things aren't fair,
Mhm.
and aren't equal. And so whether that be for Asians, for Black, Hispanic, or for LGBT or women or anyone else, my dad taught me to always fight for the underdog, and for to make sure that everyone is treated fairly. And so I think with investing, it's always been about, how do I mentor? What's the most effective way I can mentor and help founders, break that? In my mind, breaking the bamboo ceiling is about building your own house. It's very hard to break a ceiling if the people at the top are going to keep it in place. And so for me,
Absolutely.
it's like, how do I fund the next generation of leaders who are not going to have ceilings? And we can't force people to promote the 50% of Asians that work in Silicon Valley to executives if they don't want to. But if they are the CEO and the founder themselves, they might not have that ceiling, and they won't. So I think for me, the way to move the needle has been to start from the ground up and build our own houses.
So tell me a little bit more about that, because you've been funding quite a few companies that are doing pretty well. So tell us about some of these projects and how you make investment decisions, based on, because I'm sure you get tons of proposals. There's a lot of Asian American founders out there and businesses. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think I've been very blessed to have the kind of reach and network I have. And so I think I get a lot of founders from just seeing a lot of my writing on Medium and on LinkedIn. People reach out to me, and then I get a lot of referrals from other founders, because I've built, back in 2011, I started a founder community for Asian Americans here in the Bay Area, because I didn't see, that community for us here. As a founder myself, I felt like, if I don't have a community or network here, whereas Jewish founders, Black founders, other founders had a group or community. We were so fragmented because oh, they're same as when you go to college. It's like, oh, there's a Chinese society, Japanese society,
yeah.
Filipino society, and so we didn't have that kind of cohesive group. And so I started to pull that together back then, and it grew and grew to now about 400 or so, founders across the country. We had about 200 pre-pandemic, and I started investing then because I wanted to help the founders who were kind of getting overlooked, because during the pandemic, a lot of the circles of investors were mostly white males, and they had been investing in women before, and then all of a sudden it dried up because they weren't comfortable investing outside of their circles that they could meet
Yeah.
in person. So when it got kind of relegated to Zoom, I knew that a lot of the Asian founders also wouldn't be able to survive if we didn't help them out. So I pulled some folks together to start, investing in and helping them get through that time. And it was all about the mentorship and people, in the community that help one another out, lift each other up. That was inspiring to me. And so, that community and network of founders has, referred a lot of great founders to me. And it just continues. Like, the people continue to, if you provide value, give mentorship, be very honest and frank about how things are. I think more and more, folks will refer, others to you, because I'm a founder first, and then I'm an investor. So I've been through a lot of this stuff. I can't say that, the intersectionality of being an Asian woman is something that I will never fully understand. But through different founders who've told me their stories, I'm able to kind of coach and prepare some of my founders for what they go through, and also let them know that it's not always about them. It's usually about the investor. And if they
Sure.
have kind of preconceived notions, conscious or unconscious biases, and if they treat you with disrespect, like, or they kind of, are condescending, it's like, it's not about you. It's about them trying to make themselves feel important. Because they've spent 5 minutes thinking about your business. You've spent, years and, hours and hours, like, trying to think of how to make this business work. So, you know, there's this assumption that VCs or investors are smarter, but they're not. I mean, most.
Well, thank you for saying that. I
Yeah.
mean, all of it, because, I think a lot of gaslighting happens, and it's obviously an Asian American woman, and one that's super assertive and may not fit the stereotype of the quiet one that just puts their head down. It is very hard. And even among podcaster friends, even in this space, there's a difference, right? And so I'm hoping to continue like talking with you because, I'm in the Bay and wanting to join this wonderful network because I've had a lot of support, and it's building this podcast and this community has just shown me how giving and loving people are when you do genuinely support each other,
Yeah.
and guests give back, sponsor other guests, want to see them genuinely do well. So I can totally see the value of the community. Now, you also have your hand in Stand with Asian Americans, which Justin and I spoke about on last month's episode. But can you tell me a little bit more about your involvement in the
Sure.
organization and why it's important to you?
Yeah, so it all started, I guess it was last year in March when, I mean, I had been seeing all the videos that you and everyone else had been seeing about on our social media feeds of Asian senior citizens and women being attacked, and right here in San Francisco, seeing which Vici
Yeah.
Ratanapakdi get tackled to death. I think I saw all these videos, and it wasn't. It was basically when the news came out. And actually, there was it was the woman on Third and Market who was attacked, and then she fought back with a stick.
Yeah.
Um, she, I mean, again, seeing these visuals of my hometown and the city I live in, like, and people like in front of a house that looks like any house in like the Sunset or
Yeah.
Excelsior, and seeing an old Thai man getting knocked down to the ground, or seeing the corner where that woman was attacked, that I used to walk to work every day on, and being very familiar with like that corner on Third and Market, and
Right.
seeing her kind of with a black eye and bleeding, um, and screaming. I mean, these visuals, as you can tell, like so vivid in my mind still. But it wasn't until the Atlanta murders that were when the news came out that it was basically the straw that broke the camel's back, because
Yeah.
I think we had I felt like we were still so silent or ignored, and maybe we're making noise, but no one was hearing us, that I decided to write a letter, and I wrote the letter. I was like Google Doc. I wrote the letter, and I thought, you know what? I have a lot of more important friends than me that could sign this and maybe bring some attention to it. So wrote the letter, put it on Medium, asked Justin and my friends Wendy to look at the letter, and the original draft was much angrier than the one that came out, and then we kind of fixed it a little bit. Then it sounded a little too Obama, and so I put a happy medium with the anger, but also kind of more of the hope, and we got folks to sign it, and the CEOs from Google to DocuSign to Sesame Street to they I let's see who else. J.J. Abrams, the director of Star Trek, Star Wars, and Lost, signed it. Andre Iguodala signed it. President Bush signed it, and it was like it made so many people feel seen that And there's something. It's not that we couldn't kind of stand up on our own, but to have others, with influence and power also recognize that and acknowledge that, I think that made it was very powerful. So we printed the letter, a full page ad in the Wall Street Journal, and that's what led to Stand with Asian Americans. I think, um, again, the power of the network. If I didn't know the people I knew who could sign that letter, it would have been just me, another random person just whining on Medium, and people would dismiss it, and they're just like, our cries for help are ignored because we only hear, like, we live in a vacuum of
Right.
Asians posting videos of other Asians getting hurt, and complaining about it. But instead, it's like, hey, we're putting this in the Wall Street Journal with leaders of Fortune 500 companies, the biggest companies in the world, the president, an former president of the United States, and I think when you have those names behind it, it makes a big difference in terms of who pays attention. And so we got a lot of press after that, and I think it was really important to show. It said the basic gist of the letter was saying that it's enough is enough. Like, we're fed up of we've contributed so much to this country, and yet
Hmm.
we're treated like second class citizens in our own home, and I was basically fed up with it. So I think that tied it kind of very aligned with the mission of what I was trying to do with Hyphen. It was like, we're not going to, pushed around or left to sit in kind of middle management for the rest of our lives and be treated like Chinese railroad laborers
Yeah.
make money for other people anymore. This has to stop because for too many generations, my parents' generation and others, they've been stuck in labs or working as engineers and other people profiting off their labor when they never get recognized or promoted because their culture is, doesn't promote them being kind of self-promoting or whatnot. And so I think that all of it kind of led to that letter and to the movement to start Stand with Asian Americans because after that, I started getting messages of people who said, I'm 38 weeks pregnant. I was pumping gas at a gas station, and this person yelled at me to go back to my country, and I don't know if I want to stay here. I work. She's like an engineer at Apple, and she's like, why should I raise my kid here if this is going to be like how they treat us? And then she read the letter and she cried and said, you know what? I'm going to stay and fight because this is my country too. And I think the number of messages I got like that and other messages of people saying, you know, I've been treated like this at work and this is unacceptable, but no one seems to care when an Asian person is the one that's bullied or treated like, this. And so, I think for me, it was this, it wasn't a cry for help so much that it was a battle cry to galvanize a community who's felt kind of stepped on and ignored and dismissed for so long, felt like we didn't deserve to take up space because other groups took priority over us and we always kind of took a back seat to them. And I was
Mhm.
like, no, if I can fight for, Black people's rights, then I can fight for Asian rights too. It's not a mutually exclusive thing. There's not a zero-sum game. I think, many people would like us to believe that it's a zero-sum game, that there's only one pie. But we don't have to fight over the scraps. Like we should be fighting for, to get what as much as, we all deserve. And
Right.
so I think, the more that we realize that and we vocalize that, the more kind of we stand up for ourselves. And, I think with Justin's case, Michelle's case, and people starting to say, you know what, for it's been long enough that we've been treated like these railroad workers that you can step on and take advantage of and basically make your money off our backs. And so, you treat us like this, and this is how we're going to fight back. So, just like the woman, on Third and Market,
Yeah.
like picking up our stick and saying, "All right, like if this is how you want to do it, then let's go." So, when I was little, I shared this story recently, but when I was little, we were at the mall in New Jersey, and it was the holidays, and we were waiting in line for it was like I was 6 or something, and we were waiting in line for one of those train rides, um, and a family cut in front of us, or a family cut in front of us and pretended not to see us, and even though we we complained, they continued to pretend we were invisible or not there, and then my dad started going off on them and basically, berating them. And me and my mom hid in the KB toy store nearby because we were like totally embarrassed.
That's how long ago it was
Yeah,
too.
that's how long ago it was. I don't know if you even know what KB Toys is, but they, my dad was like, he wasn't scared. He didn't care what other people thought. He thought he knew he was doing the right thing, and he called them out, and they left the line quietly while the people behind him thanked him for saying something. But it was then that I realized, like, it isn't about how uncomfortable or kind of awkward it might be. The right thing is always the right thing. There's never a wrong time to do the right thing. So for me, it was like, if something needs to be said, you say it. You don't kind of just hide in the background and just let it happen. So calling out any kind of injustice is necessary. Otherwise, awareness leads to action. If you don't make people aware of it, then it'll keep happening again and again.
Did you know that you might be able to get money back on therapy? Zaya Health has helped people get reimbursed thousands of dollars, even if the therapist doesn't take insurance. Check out Zaya Health today to see if you are eligible. Well, and that brings me to obviously my area, which is mental health, right? And so there's just so many things. It's so multi-layered. So, what do you think at this point in time people need in our community in terms of mental health services, education, and even in the business arenas that you see?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much to I feel like our culture has not recognized or like allowed us to acknowledge all the kind of trauma that we've gone through and how much help we do need.
Yeah.
Um, I think those are things that we try to hide again under the keep your head down and don't complain. It's also keep your head down and um, you know don't bring attention to yourself. And so I think a lot of that has let us up a lot of the trauma that we've had and mental health issues that we've had. And you know Justin shared publicly with his board that he had those issues and he was trying to deal with them, and it was shut down. And so I feel like we as a culture and a community need to be more kind of supportive of people seeking the help they need, and providing more services too. Because I mean, I think not everyone has access to them, so we need to. And
Absolutely.
it also matters that we find therapists that understand our culture and that like are kind of our same background who can kind of relate to us too.
The positive thing is that a lot more Asian Americans are seeking services, at least in my practice. And so it's
Yeah,
very, very encouraging to see that the new generation is open to having some of these, or younger generation
yeah,
is more open to having these conversations and encouraging their loved ones to seek help. And sometimes it just takes one family member to say, hey, I talked to someone, and can we continue to normalize this, just
yep,
like we would go to a dentist? Like,
yep,
I need to get my teeth looked at every year, twice a
yeah,
year. Like,
yeah. I
why
think
not your mentals?
exactly. I mean, it's the stigma attached to it from Asian culture is such that it's a sign of weakness, and you're not supposed to show any weakness. But in reality, I think it's a sign of strength to admit or acknowledge that you need help. But our culture teaches us not to ask for help. It's like kind of a pride thing that I think we need to, it's something that we need to get over, because without help, then we're suffering inside, and more people are suffering than we realize. So I mean, I think as a leader, you know, even within my own companies, I've, shared the things that I struggle with. And then also even acknowledging that, depression is real, and that it isn't something that you could just, get over or like walk it off or do whatever, that it's just like having diabetes or anything else. You have to take care of it, whether it be with medication or with therapy or with whatnot. Like you need to acknowledge that this isn't, you need help, and to take care of it. And so I think as soon as, we all kind of realize that, the more help people will be willing to get, and that's what's most important.
Mhm. So how do you take care of yourself given all the things that you have going on? And we're also parents.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's the other
No, I
thing.
know. So I mean, I've been asking folks for referrals to therapists, but my kind of therapy right now is I'm in an organization called YPO, Young Presidents Organization, and we have groups called forums that we basically have a group that we share all of our kind of the stuff that we're going through, and we talk through them, and it's not just for advice, but it's also to be able to just verbalize a lot of the things that we're struggling with,
Mhm.
and I find a lot of help and support in that, and I think these things that we lock up inside are the things that probably like hurt us the most, and so we need to share them, whether it be a therapist or, and not just with friends. Like this group is, we have a trained facilitator, and so they walk us through it. But I think more than anything, just getting it out there is a big first step, and then figuring out how to work through a lot of the issues is the next step. And again, there's probably a lot of stuff I need to work through, and so I need to find I do need to probably find time for a therapist, because I got a lot going on.
You met the right person, so I can provide you with some good
There you
referrals
go.
after this.
Yeah, sure.
Um, so, let's address the young generation because we have kids. We want them to feel like they
Yeah.
belong, that
Yep.
they can speak up. I have daughters, so even more important for me to
Yep.
give them that space. And I'm the parent who's like, why do you have to dress up as like colonists for this thing? And parents are like, oh, but I'm just like, really, like, where's the education of Asian history,
Yeah.
Chinese history, Chinese American history? So we'll see how that goes later. But what do you think we can do for our kids
Yeah.
to make it more comfortable for
Yep.
them?
Well, I have the unfair advantage of I send my kids to a Chinese American private school, so they're around their Chinese heritage 24/7, and they're learning about it. But um, I don't. They're once they get out of that environment where is somewhat sheltered, the real world isn't as understanding and accommodating to that culture, and that's a big reason why I'm doing what I'm doing now, so that when they grow up, they don't have to you know fight the same battles. Hopefully, whether it be me working on getting more Asians in media, like, producing 38 the Garden and telling the story of Jeremy Lin and letting them see that someday, to, all the narratives that are out there in Hollywood that we can change, to politics and seeing leaders like Ted Lieu and others, show up and, now the highest ranking Democrat caucus member, like letting more and helping and supporting and promoting more of that. I'm on the board for the Smithsonian, so that someday they'll have a museum for Asian Americans on
Yes.
the National Mall in DC. But these are all things where I want them to be seen and never feel like they're unseen or ignored or invisible. Um, and I'll always tell them that, speaking up is more important than anything, and especially for yourself, advocating for yourself is important. So, my boys are 6 and 3 right now, so they have other issues that I got to deal with. But um,
Like potty training.
yeah, oh my gosh, there's a lot of that's messy still right
Oh,
now.
I'm so
But
glad when I retired the diapers, trust me.
yeah, almost there for the last one. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, it will always be about never letting them think they're less than or that they're outsiders, that they have the confidence to, like I always say, that the confidence of a mediocre white man in America is incredibly
Oh, failing forward has just
yeah,
like been a theme that I've been seeing
yeah, yeah,
like throughout my whole life. But in many situations, we get there and we're like, wait, you should be fired. So it's just really, really tough to like believe in something and just seeing it be very different.
yeah. And I mean, I'm not saying that all white men are mediocre. I'm saying that
No, no, yeah.
many have, gotten pretty far with not having that much to offer. And the other thing is, it's not just about them, it's about the confidence that they have that they can do anything they want. I'm like, well, if my boys have that confidence, they'll get pretty far, because even outside that confidence, feeling like, you can do anything is huge. So, yeah, I think there's a lot I want to instill in my boys, and I'm doing the work now so that they, will see this later. This is the legacy I want to leave for them, but not just for my kids. When I see all my friends' kids and the kids at school and my son's friends, I'm like this is for them. This is,
Yeah.
hopefully that they'll be able to have a different experience than we had growing up.
And I'm the mom who it's movie night and I'm like, we're gonna watch this documentary on Jeremy Lin. And and they're like, what documentary? But we loved it, right? Like
A little bit of
we
cussing, but hopefully the girls are old enough that they're.
I mean, they're 10 and
Oh
8. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
they
yeah, okay.
don't say it. My oldest is like every time someone says a cuss word, but my husband and I are like, get used to it because everybody's not like our household who are like careful about the
Yeah.
F bomb.
The girls need to learn
Yeah.
what big dick energy means, and they have to have it, and they have to act that way too.
Yeah, both of them are like that.
Yep.
It's
That's
it's it's
good.
really good.
That's good.
So tell me a little bit more though about now how you define success because I imagine it's changed over your lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. Like, when I was saying before, jumping through hoops and, getting from, you know, act job to school to this or that, I think, and then even just like making more income, I think a lot of it was, oh, the goal is to make a lot of money because that's what brings security and that's what my parents wanted me to have. Um, but I realized I'm like, the money will come if you, do what you're passionate about and you're good at it and you work, you make it happen. But I think the as I've gotten older, success for me is making things that have a lasting impact and realize that, that you can have an influence on others through the things that you do. So, I mean, I think for me, the more projects I'm involved in that I know will have a lasting impact and give back to my community and other communities, that's to me what success is, because there's, it's not about fame or power or money with those things. It's I'm not going to be here when this museum like is going down the road, but someone will be able to go and visit it. Or this movie's made; it's already been made. Like I could be dead, and someone will watch it, like generations after me, and that won't be about me. That'll be about Jeremy's story and making sure the narrative is shown that, we can wave them off too, and we can have that confidence that he had. But it's about investing in companies that will make a difference in the Midwest of people drinking Sanzo and having calamansi flavored drinks, or
Yeah.
yuzu flavored drinks, or um, walking down the aisle in Target and seeing an Asian American girl doll that isn't some American girl doll that was some weird background and divorced her Asian husband and married, like her dad divorced her Asian dad and married a white guy and moved to Aspen. I mean, when I found that out about the American Girl doll, I was like, you got to be kidding me. That's what the American Asian American Girl doll is. Um, so I think for me, it's like, hey, how do I help the next generation and future generations see themselves as, more than they are? Um, that to me will be much more lasting than, the bank account or anything else like that. So I know it sounds cliche. It's like, oh, that's great. You still have to pay the bills, and I'm paying the bills, and I got to work too. But I think those things allow me to work on the things that I think matter to me most.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll share a positive um, visual for you because I was in the airport yesterday and I saw a white family, and their dolls were black and brown, and I'm just like, this is amazing. This shows there's something more powerful to me because of the psychological studies of what kids prefer, a white doll or a black doll. And even black children chose white dolls. And so I think, stuff like that, we need to really pay attention to the positive progress that's also happening. And it's not to have toxic positivity, but that picking out those instances too can be inspiring and help move us forward, because you're talking about mission driven, vision driven work that does not stop after we die. Hopefully we have many more years, but the whole idea of leaving something for future generations and communicating storytelling, right?
Mhm. Yeah, totally. And I mean, granted, you're probably at SFO and the Bay Area is a little more, progressive than other places, but I've seen that too. And I think those parents had to make, whether it's because they're super woke or progressive or not, they still have, they still chose and intentionally made the decision to buy a doll that was a black or brown doll, and their daughters or sons will see that, and that will impact them. Like, I think that's what's most important. If, when I think Thanksgiving, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, I was watching with my boys, and I'm like, wow, I didn't realize until I saw them all together that when I saw Alan Moroka, who's the like he runs the grocery store on Sesame Street, who actually introduced me at the award ceremony 2 weeks ago. It was amazing to meet him. And then Josh from Blue's Clues, which my boys watch also, and then Ryan, the Ryan balloon from Ryan's World, like floating. I think there's, and then there was the first Asian Miss America, who was Asian from Texas, the Korean American.
Hmm.
And then the Disney float had Raya and like it was Raya and Mulan on it.
Yeah.
But I think it's like, wow, I couldn't have imagined any of this when I was little, seeing this on TV, and seeing this on the Thanksgiving Day Parade. But
Mhm.
here we are now because, I think we've pushed for that, and we've pushed to be seen. And I think that that impact that my kids seeing that is what I want to continue to have on other kids too.
I like how things have evolved. I mean, I love Little Mermaid, don't get me wrong. But if you really think about the story, a
Yeah, it's a little.
16-year-old girl who lost her voice, who is trying to get married and leave
I'm trying
home.
to get a man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. To save herself. We've come a long way in terms of that storytelling. So
Yeah.
I really am so grateful for all the things that you do. What can people do to support the efforts in the community, stand with Asian Americans in all your endeavors?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to standwithasianamericans.com and sign the pledge, and donate if you feel able to. But I think for me, it's participating in those things. With if we have events and chapters that we can participate in, but it's also supporting those people and their stories that are being told within Stand with Asian Americans, like Michelle, like Justin, who are in these lawsuits with their employers. But what I've seen more in the past year since we've kind of published that letter in the Wall Street Journal is that people are using their voice more on platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter and elsewhere
Yeah.
to um, they're unabashedly Asian, and the same thing as Michelle Lee did, like, on that, when that dumpling, lady called about the dumplings. She's hashtag very Asian, and she started a foundation for that. But I think the more pride that we have, and the more vocal we are about it, the more we will be seen. And it's right now, I think it's important that we be seen because, we're seeing images still of hate crimes that are happening constantly, that, that are we're seeing ways that we're being unseen, or invisible, and being treated like, that we're invisible. We need to fight that narrative back, and basically be proud of all the things that are happening, but push for more. Like it's still not enough. I mean, it's great that we see these things on the Thanksgiving parade, but there are places that are still far from
Oh, yeah.
have including us. So yeah, I think speak up in wherever you might be, even in the small ways you can make a big difference, and then you inspire others to stand up as well. So this letter started a movement, and I didn't expect it. I was an angry, upset person writing on a Google Doc, and it's led to so much more. So I think that's if anything, that ripple effect that you can have. Never underestimate how powerful one voice can be.
What would you say to someone who's very hesitant and afraid to speak out? Because not all folks have that support or strength
Yeah,
or courage to sue their employer or whatnot, and like go through the daily stressors, the
yeah,
microaggression. So what would you tell them?
yeah. Look, I don't want anyone to hear this to think that it's easy to do this, or anyone can do this, because would I be able to do any of this stuff if I was 22 and at my first job, and had no
I
savings?
laugh because it's, you're in a different mindset too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, I'm older now. I'm more secure now. It's easy for me to say things because I have, like, I have a safety net or whatnot. Some people have spouses that can support them through if they do have a legal battle. It's not about legal battles. If you are in that place right now, join a community. Like, I have my YPO community for my therapy and support sessions. Like, stand with Major Americans and chapters. Find others and talk. That your ERG at your workplace. Find others who have a common, experience to you, and are probably struggling with the same things, and be vulnerable and open up about them, because that's the only way you start healing, is if you actually share about the things that you're going through in a real way. Don't you have to find a safe place for you to talk about these things. Otherwise, you'll never be honest with yourself or honest with others. But that's first and foremost, I think, what you need: a community to know that you have support. If you go on this alone, it's very, very hard.
I love that. Vulnerability in a safe space. That's going to be a clip. I'm
All
putting a
right.
note here out there now.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dave, for spending the time with me. I know your schedule is super busy. And I mean, just the fact, I say this on most interviews, is that just the fact that we're on screen together means so much because of how we look like, what we've been through, and just to be able to share our legacies for our children. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Color of Success podcast. Remember, to support the show for free, please go to colorofsuccesspodcast.com to sign up for our mailing list, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on our socials, and subscribe to all of our episodes on anywhere where you stream podcasts. As Rob Heaps from Partner Track says, success is contagious, so go catch it.